A court ruling that seemed, at first glance, to revolve around a handful of malicious online comments has unexpectedly evolved into one of South Korea's fiercest public debates. A woman in her 30s received a 4-month prison sentence, suspended for 1 year, after insulting singer and actress IU with phrases such as fraud and mentally ill. Yet what shocked the public even more than the verdict itself was the backlash that followed. Instead of sympathizing with the victim of online abuse, a segment of Korean netizens turned their anger toward the so-called nation's little sister. The question now dividing South Korea's online sphere is no longer simply, was the punishment too severe? Rather, it has become, are we witnessing justice being upheld, or society failing to understand the true cost of digital violence? A small court case that sparked a much bigger debate. According to the ruling by the Seoul Central District Court, the defendant repeatedly used insulting language targeting IU. The court concluded that these remarks were not merely emotional outbursts or personal opinions but constituted deliberate defamation and humiliation under Korean law. What makes the case particularly striking is that IU is a public figure, someone constantly exposed to criticism, rumors, and public scrutiny. Even so, the court emphasized an important legal principle: being famous does not mean surrendering one's dignity or accepting limitless humiliation. The message appeared straightforward: celebrity status should not turn someone into an emotional punching bag for public frustration, resentment, or prejudice. Yet social media interpreted the case very differently. Is IU too powerful? The dangerous psychology of celebrity resentment. After news of the sentence spread, numerous posts on X erupted with anger and suspicion. Some users framed the incident as evidence of a modern class society, where a multimillionaire celebrity could allegedly push an ordinary woman suffering from epilepsy into receiving a criminal sentence over only a few online remarks. Others questioned the fairness of the legal system entirely. If calling someone a fraud leads to jail, prisons would be overflowing, one comment argued. Is IU someone no one is allowed to criticize? Others asked, while some openly attacked the star's character. At first glance, such reactions may appear to be a defense of freedom of expression. But beneath the surface lies a more complex social psychology: discomfort with celebrity power. When a public figure possesses immense wealth, influence, and access to legal protection, audiences sometimes instinctively cast them as the powerful side, while automatically sympathizing with the accused as the powerless, regardless of who may actually be right or wrong. That dynamic helps explain why the case was quickly reframed in certain circles as a story of the rich suppressing the ordinary. But is that framing truly fair? The real issue is not IU, it is the boundary between criticism and abuse. One critical detail often overlooked in public discourse is that the defendant was not punished for a single careless comment. During the appeals process, the case was merged with another prosecution involving similar posts made by the same individual. The court also emphasized aggravating circumstances, repeated offenses, denial of wrongdoing, lack of remorse, and failure to reach reconciliation with the victim. In other words, this was not an impulsive attempt to silence anti-fans. It was the result of a prolonged legal process weighing both aggravating and mitigating factors, including the defendant's diagnosis of drug-resistant epilepsy and the eventual deletion of the offending posts. This raises an uncomfortable but necessary question: why does society still tend to trivialize online harassment? Perhaps because social media creates the illusion that words carry no consequences. A comment typed in 5 seconds can become emotional damage someone carries for years. The shadow of K-pop's past tragedies. It is no coincidence that South Korea has become increasingly aggressive in addressing online abuse. Over the past decade, the entertainment industry has witnessed countless celebrities suffer severe psychological distress as a result of malicious comments. These invisible wounds were often dismissed until devastating tragedies forced society to confront an unsettling truth: perhaps cruelty online had been normalized for far too long. For years, anti-fans defended themselves with familiar excuses: it was just a joke, it's only my opinion, or celebrities should be able to handle criticism. But if placed in ordinary life, would anyone willingly accept being publicly labeled a fraud or mentally ill before thousands of strangers? The answer seems obvious. What is IU's lawsuit really exposing? Perhaps the most controversial aspect of this case is not the sentence itself, but what it reveals about a changing internet culture in South Korea. For years, social media rewarded outrage. The harsher the insult, the greater the engagement. The more vicious the attack, the more attention it generated. Now, as legal accountability begins to tighten, some users appear unsettled because the old safe zone of consequence-free hostility is disappearing. In that sense, this is not merely IU's legal battle. It is a defining moment in South Korea's struggle to decide what kind of digital culture it wants: an internet of unlimited speech without responsibility, or one where words carry consequences just as they do in real life. And perhaps the most uncomfortable truth behind this controversy is not about who won or lost in court. It is the realization that many people still refuse to see online abuse for what it truly is: violence.